Today's another beautiful day, yeah? I hope so. We're starting this off pretty damn square. So I just wanted to go back into the theme of what are our goals, you know, and keep pushing our goals right in the beginning when we were talking about this, build a who, what, when, where, why, and how around achieving those goals. And now it's just about the accountability. And this is where I would have problems myself in life if I didn't have anything that was keeping me accountable to what I was doing. And it was really about leveraging my loved ones, my peers, or my sphere. And something that I had seen for years and years in coaching, but I resisted heavily. And I'll explain why. And I think a lot of us suffer from that personally anyway, is we don't post what we're trying to achieve publicly. And we don't do that because if we don't accomplish it, we don't want to be judged. And the reason we don't want to be judged is because we never really took full accountability to accomplish what we set out to accomplish in the first place. So we can get by with half measures. And again, that was most of my life. My life was half measures. But where it counted when it came to financial gain, my half measures compared to other people still provided real results for me. So I was able to just, in a sense, limp through a lot of things, but still have successes that other people might have looked at and admired from afar, but they didn't know my internal struggles in what I was dealing with, in getting into a different state to elevate myself even further. I was petrified to do that stuff, showing up here every morning. That doesn't scare me. Being on these calls and talking to all of you, that doesn't scare me. But saying I'm going to do something and then maybe I don't do it, or I don't do it great, or I don't even start, then there's judgment. So who can we leverage in order to have the kind of accountability that we're looking for in order to achieve the things that we're looking to achieve? And as we keep evolving this group and this room, and we put more tools in order to create transparency, right? Those Monday and Friday sheets, if you've looked at them, look at what they're asking you to declare. One of the things that they have in their column is what will get in your way. And I think often enough, we don't really pay attention to the demons or the crutches or the pitfalls that we know are there, but we try to look the other way. And we all know that that's bullshit and it doesn't work. It just doesn't. So to declare these things, to actually remove power from them, so that as we're saying we're going to do these things, as we internally believe in ourselves more, how are we going to be supported? Because I will tell you, we can't do it on our own. We can't. You can't just do it on your own unless you're one of that insane small few percentage. But even that insane small percentage still has a coach. I've witnessed it from the greatest people that I know achieving at levels that are beyond what most people would ever wish to expect out of their lives. And they are still being pushed. And the fancy thing about what happens as you start to expand your capacity is you want to take on more, but then you're going to hit things that freak you out. And then what? And then we default. So we need a support system. That's what this call is about. And it's not just being here in the morning with me, with this community, and all the other people that will start to join this community and part of the people that aren't here in this community. We need to connect. And it's almost like AA, I look at that as a good thing. AA is a good thing as far as sponsors, right? You have someone to call when you're freaking out. And that person doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife. Sometimes those people that are closest to us aren't the most supportive people. I hate to say that. I'm sorry. That's just the truth. But if we also believe in people, if we believe in an infrastructure that we can build with people that aren't going to judge us or freak us out,
I don't know what Chuck you
That's important.
I have not.
Thanks, Dave. I don't have nothing either. But anyway, I muted you, buddy. So I just want everyone to understand that leveraging, bringing people in that you know won't attack you if for whatever reason you start to veer off course is important. I know it's important because I have a Monday and a Friday coaching call with a friend of mine, and I know what that does for me. I understand the accountability that I put on myself, and he is the primary person I talk to when I'm struggling with things. And then we just work to elevate ourselves or shift our perspective, or again, as I say, give ourselves a punch in the brain to move out of whatever it is we're not doing and back into what we're doing, because we distract ourselves a lot. And unfortunately, more often than not at home, our support structure isn't there to support our growth in the way that we want to grow a lot of the times. And we might start watching our favorite movie, or we might this, or we might that. And I was thinking this morning while I was on my walk, and I was just like, okay, elevate, 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 not in a way where I'm like, I'm always chasing this thing that I'll never get to and I'm freaking myself out. No, it's just reevaluating where I'm at in my process and what can I take time away from that is not valuable and reassign it to something that's invaluable. And then who do I declare that to so that I can be held accountable? And it's not like my consequence is I'm going to die if I don't do it. But the thing that I've been studying internally for myself about meaning, because I have to put meaning into things so that I can look at that, get an emotional kick in the head, move forward in what I'm trying to accomplish. And I want to live in a way where when I die, my tank is empty. I want to do that. I want to be in this place where I know I've exhausted myself. I want to put it all on the table. I don't want to keep making excuses for myself. So there was a conversation I had with somebody where, as gentle as I could, because I know that they're very sensitive, I made some suggestions in the kindest, nicest, most non-threatening way. And you have to remember that depending on who you're talking to, they might not be the right person to support you, because the way they will respond or the way they will act isn't designed to help you when you need that punch in the brain to build and keep moving forward in your infrastructure. Sometimes the strongest people also need the strongest pillars of support, because even the strongest get weakened. Even the most insanely designed foundation in a house can still be cracked if there's a high magnitude earthquake. It doesn't matter. Something can shake your foundation, but who is there to fix that foundation? Who's your foundation expert? Who do you talk to when you're having problems? Because as all of you are here, you all want to elevate where you're going in your world. You all do. Everybody here that shows up, you show up for a reason. There's a purpose behind it. And you've actually started to feel that this community is supporting you in understanding that we all struggle while we grow. We can't do it without it. Don't think that I don't struggle. I just struggle quickly. I go through my stuff quickly because I understand if I just want to be in a corner and wallow all by myself, what is that going to solve? How long is grief supposed to last? And there is no playbook on that. There's no playbook on how long grief is supposed to last. So it's different for everybody. So if you talk to somebody that wants to be depressed, lives depressed, and is constantly depressed for months on end, you're not going to solve anything for them because they haven't worked on their internal story, right? Where do you want to go? Who have you declared that to? When you start talking to yourself inside, were those just, BS words that you put out into the universe? Or were those words that you wanted to be held accountable to? So you got to ask yourself, who is there for the support? Why are there these accountability sheets that I provided? Why are there daily activities that I now have shared with all of you that you can look at so you can have more of a balanced life, so you can understand you can expand your capacity And it's insane when I look at where my capacity is, because I've worked to blow that balloon up and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you think it's going to pop, but it's one of those balloons that will never pop. You can keep filling it. But yet so many of us never actually tug on the balloon to give it what it needs to stretch, to open, right? And sometimes we need the support of the helium machine because we're out of breath. And that machine was brought there by who, right? Was it by you? Was it somebody who cared for you? Was it somebody that wanted to take over? Was it, hey, I'm going to throw this big ass party, and somebody brought the helium machine on your behalf and you didn't even think about it? That's what a support group is for. That's what a support system is for. That's what your tight friends are for. So you got to protect who you are. You got to do what, again, a mentor and a great friend of mine said, you got to have a checkup from your neck up, because if the people that you're relying on to support you and your future growth have no foundation themselves, then they have no business being your support system. They just don't. And the really unfortunate part is we will just put puzzle pieces in front of us and say, this is going to make the most beautiful picture, but it was the wrong piece in the wrong place. But we think because we put a piece in place, it's going to actually create the vision and support our vision. And it's not. So be very careful with who your support system is. If you're putting things on social media that you're going to declare and work towards, great. But keep posting so you can show your progress so that people can get behind you. Because believe me, the one crazy thing that happened in my life when I was in my early 20s is our house burnt down. And what I found fascinating was the people that you thought would show up to help you didn't. And all of a sudden, strangers came out of the woodwork. And I was like, oh my God. And it was like this rekindled faith in humanity, because you don't expect things from strangers. You expect things from people you know. But when you put things out there into a universe where you're asking to be held accountable, and you're consistent in your postings and being vulnerable about your experience, you can find, outside of just this group, because this is a very vulnerable group and this is a support group to help us all grow. But it's not just in this group. We still live outside of this group. So I just wanted to open it up a little bit to hear from some of you, to hear who is there to support you, who you share your goals and dreams with, and if there are any of those people. And it's okay if there aren't. It really is okay, because everything starts with a first step. So if there aren't any, then now we know we need that. Further than just this room, people close to us in our world, or we have to find new friends or mentors. And people will step up. The most successful people that you see, if you can tell they're not an egotistical, arrogant person, they understand the struggle that it took to get them to where they're at. And if you reach out to them, you'll be surprised that they'll take a call or go for lunch with you, or be open to sharing their experiences or hearing where you're at. Right? It's about getting outside of your comfort zone. So I'll open it up to, Jason, you're still relatively new in here. I know you turned your camera off just when I called your name, which is awesome. But I'd love to, I'm going to unmute you or ask you to unmute, and I really want to know who's in your world and who's there for you to be supportive. And if there aren't, that's okay, because that's what we're going to build.
Sure. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome.
Can you hear me?
How are you?
Sure. Yeah. I apologize. I was answering your text message. I'm still of working. So honestly, for me, I'm just really starting to open up again. I've been in a place where I've kind of tried to handle so many things on my own, and kind of tuck away a lot of stuff. So I'm really starting to really just open up. I have had a couple of good people in my life that have offered me some help, but I really am just starting to reach out to find, that next level support system, the kick in the pants that you need, that really is trying to move forward, because there's so many things I just feel like I'm not accessing. And I love the balloon analogy. Is just, you can be limitless if you're pushed and stretched. So that's where I am now. Like, I'm wide open just to be ready to, who's next? What is really, what's in Jason to really let out? I'm ready. There's no more resistance to it for me. So I'm looking for, those supports now at this point in my life.
And that I love and appreciate. So here's where it all starts, not just in this room, but a secondary part of where your life begins is in your morning routine. Do you have a morning routine? Are there things that you do to successfully and positively influence the way your day is going to be shaped?
So yes, I just really started developing that again, or really looking into it. So I have a quiet time. Maybe it's light music in the morning. I go down and make my green tea. It's probably about 5:15, 5:30ish in the morning. Maybe
Awesome.
a little slight stretching or workout, because I just like that time when no one else is up in the house.
Yep.
And I'm really trying to stay consistent with that, drinking water and green tea in the morning and just being quiet, no social media, not that instant access to the phone, just, something really quiet, maybe some vibration music I'm listening to in the morning. Just, I need about that half an hour or so. So I'm just really getting into it. I haven't been as consistent as I want to be, but it does absolutely help. Yeah.
And that's what we're going to work on, is our consistency, because the avoidance of being consistent, right? We have Dave in the bottom left corner with the beautiful smile he's got on with his Hurley shirt, right? But Dave is someone who create tasks, and he's just got organizational behavior built into him, designed almost naturally, right? Some people just have different traits. As John makes I wish I had more of that too. Right?
Yeah, I'm 100% jealous of that.
So it's like starting to get into a routine, starting to do these things regularly, then you actually start to hate missing them, right? So that's what I want to help you achieve, Jason, because it's like building that morning foundation for you, being responsible to you. And Jim Rohn would say, if you can't eat an apple a day, what can you do? Like if you can't eat an apple a day, what can you do? If you can't do something as simple as that, what do you expect to do? How do you expect to do these big, giant things in your life if you can't even eat an apple a day? And I always think about that analogy, because it's the simplest thing. How the hell am I not doing it? Right? So it's literally about designing your life in a way where you start from the ground up. This is accountability for you at this moment. You're working to get into a routine. We're going to expand the mindset. We're going to do things that create habits over time. And, I'm going to be posting things in our Facebook group about how my day starts with what I listen to. Today, I listened to two powerful, motivating, like 10-minute YouTube, different speakers, but that powerful music, that positive momentum, sharing things that we all know. And it's not rocket science, but it's being reminded. And then I get back, and then today I did about 30 minutes of stretching, because again, if I don't, my back gets jacked up. And then I did my 11-minute breathing exercises, and it gets everything calm. And then I was listening to the beginning of a success meditation, because I there's so much time I'm already successfully meditating that the beginning of it makes me breathe in, hold, and stress every single muscle in my body for 5 seconds. I'm tensing up my whole body, and we do it 3 times. And it's amazing how much my body releases into that. And then I'm like a freaking dragster when I walk out the door, right? And it's because I've created this foundation. It's because I'm being vulnerable here. I'm putting things out there. I've hired people to now help me create and build my infrastructure. But I was petrified to do all those things for the longest time, because it meant I had to be responsible. And I naturally hated being responsible because I didn't want to be accountable. I didn't. And there were a lot of reasons why, but a lot of it was because I didn't want to be found out. I didn't want to be discovered. I don't want to be not good enough. I don't want to be, I knew you were that, I didn't want people pointing a finger at me. So I would just have like these moments of greatness, and then I'd be in a corner away. And for what purpose? When really, I just want to leave everything out. I want my tank empty when I die now. I want it empty.
Right.
So John, I'll call on you, man. I want to know, John is a veteran to these calls. He was on the original class that I started when I created this at the beginning of COVID. And John, just he's not only an incredible guy. I mean, such a giving, wonderful, warm person, but also very vulnerable in the things that he's also shared, and the growth, and he's got some amazing things that have transformed his life in a lot of happy ways as far as a special person, and I'm excited for John on that. But again, we all have our struggles, and that's what we're working to remedy and expose and make better. So I'd love for you to share what your support system looks like, or where you're at with some of these things, John. And again, we can just keep the vulnerability train going so we can all see what we're working with.
Thank you for that almost poetic introduction.
Right.
That was beautiful. I appreciate that.
For sure.
Yeah. So as you said, I've got a lot going on in my life, positive and negative. And one of the things that I took away from our original call was life tends to trend where you focus. So one of the things that I am most looking forward to getting back to with these calls is that ability to focus on the good things in life. That my recent engagement, the impending, I shouldn't say impending, that sounds like doom, but my upcoming wedding to this girl that I've been flirting with for 20 years and finally am engaged to. But as far as what my support structure around me looks like right now, it's pretty sparse. It's sort of this call and then one or two other people out there. There's for a long time I was operating under this piece of research that popped out about how telling people your goals made you less likely to actually pursue them. I missed the follow-up where it said telling the right people your goals had a much more positive effect. So I'm getting back, and it's stupid, right? I'm usually the guy who harps on you didn't do enough research, and that's exactly the trap I fell into. So getting back to that, where I had that support structure, is probably the biggest reason for my return to these calls.
And that's what we need, because I am, again, as we are building this is in its infancy for how I want it to grow. And Joe is, he's instrumental in what we're growing and putting it out there. And it's like those daily, that weekly accountability form is something that I'm going to have all of you doing. It's not going to be homework and it's not mandatory, but if you guys want to change your world, you're going to start to put it down on paper, and you're going to start looking at it so that you can declare it and you can move towards it. Because without anything, like, I achieved different levels of success in real estate just because, right? I have the ability to make certain things happen. But there were other people that were less skilled than me in being a great orator and talking to people and making things happen and being solutions oriented. You put me in those pieces, we'll get the deal done. But for all the things that have to be built out, the infrastructure, the leads, the lead follow-up, the automation, the this, the that, no. And I'd be like somebody on an EKG with like the most radical heartbeat you've ever seen in your life. I'd be up, I'd be down, I'd be a flat line, I'd be this, I'd be that. And I want to be the monk who can slow his heart rate down to 10 or 20 beats a minute, because I'm in control of everything that I'm doing. Not that I'm a control freak. I am not by any means, but I just want to be able to control the things that dictate my life so that I can be present and I can see what's up. And that's the thing that we can't do when we're living out of balance, out of whack, and totally stressed, is you cannot see life around you. You're not paying attention to life around you. So it's almost impossible to have a support group if you're not grounding yourself, getting the right support group in front of you, being open, honest, and vulnerable about it, and then moving through the process with them. And it's okay to screw up. It's totally cool. It's kind of part of the process, because you have to pick up those pieces. And I can't remember the word, but there's a Japanese art for when you break a dish or a pot or something and they put it back together with gold. And they say that plate or that pot or whatever it is that was put back together is stronger than when it was in one piece before. And also with all the gold leaf embedded through it, it's more beautiful. So work on finding the right support group. Yes, we're here, but I'm talking about people outside of here as well. Understand that you have to break in order to rebuild more beautifully, and understand that's just part of the process. And the more you try to avoid all those things, the unfortunate part is you're just going to be on a shelf collecting dust with all the other pots that you're trying to protect. And that won't get you anywhere. You'll never get used. You'll never get seen. You'll never be anything. So get out there and go break yourself gently, metaphorically, not physically. All right, everybody, we'll go kick some ass.
One second, Stephen.
Yep.
Everyone that's on this call, we invited you to the Facebook page. So if you could check your email, I believe you'll send to your email. If not, then I will have the Facebook group link sent to you directly. So every day, these calls are going to be posted on the Facebook page. If you miss it, or if you want to go back to it, you could definitely go on the Facebook page. Also, Stephen mentioned in the beginning that we want to share, we want to share our wins. We want to share what we're working on, and that's what the Facebook group is for. So if you're working on something and you want us to hold you accountable, then post on the Facebook group, because Stephen and I and the rest of our staff, we're going to be looking through it and be like, oh, Jason's going to launch a coaching business for sure. Let's keep him accountable. Let's root him on, because this is what a true support system is. You don't need to do business alone. And this whole group that Stephen and I are putting together, it's really for your own growth. Yeah, Stephen goes on every morning and he shares amazing ideas and mentorship and insight. But the true power is in the unity with everyone here.
The community.
And that's right, the community. And that's the power of the Facebook page. And it's private, no one else outside of the group is going to see it. So if you're having a hard time and you need some ideas for solutions, post it on the group. And as a collective, let's support each other. And I just want to encourage you guys to definitely leverage that Facebook group, because it can make a world of a difference when all of our minds are put together to challenge a problem or to expand a solution. So I just wanted to leave you guys with that before we wrap up.
Thank you, Joe. All right, everybody. We'll catch you tomorrow. Same time, different day.